I thought I would film here today. These are my main bookshelves. They are in a hallway, and I've been assured that no one will be home until midnight, so I can reasonably film with my camera sitting on a stool in the doorway to the kitchen while I sit in the hallway outside my bedroom. And yeah, these are my books. Let's see if I can show you more of them. So up there, down here, and if I flip this around, more there, and you're probably seeing a shaky camera now, but anyway, my books. As you probably know if you've been watching my channel, I will be moving to Ottawa in about 2 months, and I cannot take all of these with me. I have more in my bedroom. These are just where my main books are. And so I've already acknowledged that I'm going to be leaving many of them, if not most of these, behind. But at the same time, this is also an opportunity for me to sort through things, purge things, and I'm doing something I thought I would never be doing. This is an unhaul. Most of these books are books that I've read, but that I don't think I'll read again. So as I move on in the next stage of my life, I'm starting to sort through some things, and that includes books. The first one I have here is one I haven't read yet, but the reason I'm getting rid of it is because I have 2 copies. So this is Stephen Leacock's Sunshine Sketches of a Little Town, a New Canadian Library classic. I have this in a different New Canadian Library edition, and that one matches with some of the other books I have, and so I prefer to keep that one as opposed to this one. This is a very famous collection of short stories, and I am meaning to read these. The second one I'm getting rid of is Hegemony and Socialist Strategy Towards a Radical Democratic Politics by Ernesto Lacou and Chantal Mouffe. I read this 2 summers ago now. Don't ask me what it's about. It was written in the 1980s. The academic language is so bewildering that I'm not even sure I understood what I was reading at the time, but I had bought it on a whim, and I will probably never attempt it again. The third book I'm getting rid of is also one that I have read, also I think 2 summers ago, Anti-Capitalism by Simon Tormey, Beginner's Guide. I remember it being interesting. Once again, I bought it on a whim when I was at the chapters. Probably will never read it again. Not the most attractive book to be having on my shelf, but an interesting read at the time. Fourth one I'm getting rid of is On Democracy by Robert A. Dahl. This was a thrift store pickup, I think. I recall reading approximately half of it. I never got all the way through. Probably not something I will read again if I want to take a refresher course in democracy, read a book about democracy. There are much better ones to be reading. The next one is something I never actually used. Late night Amazon purchases. Oil pastel step by step. Discover the secrets to creating masterpieces in oil pastel. When I was a kid, I was into oil pastel. The chalkier pastels too, don't ask me what those are called, but my parents still have a sunflower I drew when I was 10 years old. At an art class I saved up my money to take at the local library. It's hanging on our living room wall still. I did it when I was 10, and I think it still looks pretty good. The next 2 I'm getting rid of are part of a series. I read the entire series. I only enjoyed the first book in the series, which is Tempest Tossed by Robertson Davies. Frankly, I was bored by a mixture of frailties and leaven of malice in Robertson Davies' Salterton trilogy, and I picked these up at a used bookstore 2 years ago, and chances are I will never read them again. The next one I'm getting rid of is Managing Anxiety with CBT for Dummies. I never actually read all the way through this. I read bits and pieces. a year or so ago, just out of interest. Then I am also getting rid of something that my mom brought home for me recently. She volunteers at a thrift store. They were throwing it out. I thought that it would be a good addition to my library, but to be honest, I already have 3 of these in another edition, and although I love Dashiell Hammett, I can't be keeping all these books. So this is just a few of his novellas in a big flashy volume. I'm also getting rid of Elizabeth Hayes, His Whole Life. Got about halfway through this one last fall. I purchased it new, and I had really hoped that I would like it because I really enjoyed her novel Late Nights on Air, which I read last summer. It sounded like a really interesting concept. I kept meaning to get back to it, but I was just not engaged the way that I hoped I would be. Then I am also getting rid of a Charles Dickens novel that I never got through the old Curiosity Shop. Been on my shelf for about 5 years, and I'm going to say, let's be honest, if I was going to read this, I would have read this by now. This is one of the basic editions that Chapters sells for cheap. They tend to do like a 3 for $10 sale every once in a while. At least that's how I believe I purchased it back in the day. I think I got Persuasion and The Gambler by Dostoevsky at the same time I bought this, and I read those almost immediately. This has been sitting on my shelf, so I probably will not be reading it anytime soon. And if for some reason I want to read The Old Curiosity Shop, pretty sure every library in Ontario has a copy. The next book is a book that I read the first few chapters of, and I was disappointed. I really loved Terry Fallis's 2 novels, The Best Laid Plans and The High Road, I think was the second one. And so I purchased his Poles Apart, but I just couldn't get into it. It was supposed to be about a male feminist blogger. Not likable characters, not loving where it was going so far. So I stopped reading. The next one is also one that I gave up on. Notes on the Death of Culture. Essays on Spectacle and Society by Mario Vargas Llosa, winner of the Nobel Prize in Literature, translated by John King. Purchased this new. I ended up spending about $35 on it. Wish I hadn't. Not a bad collection of essays overall. I just felt like it was rehashing a lot of things that I was already familiar with from my academic study. And the final one I am purging at this point is Another Country by James Baldwin. I was about 2/3 of the way through this, but I just could not finish it. I don't know, I guess the writing style isn't really the kind of writing style that I like. It doesn't help that the main character jumps off a bridge in the first chapter or so of the novel. I felt like I was reading a rehash of things that I had already read elsewhere and seen elsewhere. I'm not saying that I'm giving up on James Baldwin forever, but this was just not a book that I could get into. So that is my first unhaul. No doubt I will be going through more things as my move gets closer. I'm hoping to leave only these shelves out here, and that will be the only portion of my property that remains in this house when I move out. Trying to empty out what's in my bedroom so that my sister can have it. We have shared a room her entire life, mostly my entire life since I was 4, and it's getting a bit too close for comfort, and she needs her own space, my family needs their own space. It's time for me to move on.